suck, but also whatever cooks. But if you give us too much shit, we'll just get pissed off and quit. So don't do it. It's time for Marvel Comics Spotlight Show, telling you everything that we know. It's time for Marvel Comics Spotlight Show. Let's go. Let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to what is kind of an impromptu live edition of the Marvel Comics with Sully. I'm here with Sully. What up, Sully?
Hello and happy St. Patrick's Day weekend
Yes.
from Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, no, from Boston.
Are you wearing the green there, Matty?
I might have some green on right now and didn't even realize it. And if my mom ended up knowing that, she would roll over in her grave. Now, with that, she's not dead. So with all that, she'd still she hated the Irish. She would tell me all the time.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, well, she's
The
British,
had these
and
feelings.
I-
We weren't people.
I
to
never
them.
really could understand. She never explained it really to me.
Deeply inculcated.
Why.
No, this is why the progressives need to take over the schools. All right.
So I'm telling you, my mom just was the biggest hater of all time and hated me more than the Irish. So
My
we
Irish
had that.
grandma had a thing against the Romany.
Okay, well there you
Yeah.
go. You have all
You
sorts
dirty
of fun
tooker.
things.
Put on some shoes, you dirty tooker.
Oh my goodness gracious!
It's like, what?
But yes, you are from Boston, and it is
Yeah.
the whole St. Patrick's Day. So I'm sure
Yep.
I always got the idea that it would be something where you'd be like, "Oh, here we go." Here we go with this nonsense. Like the idea that every day St. Patrick's Day in South Boston, I would think. But it just reminds me of things where people get all excited about something, but the people who actually are involved or whatever, they're like, oh, I don't need it. But St. Patrick's Day is pretty darn big. So I would say that that's not the case. There is no like St. Quakertown's Day for my town. So that's the deal. But do a lot of, I would assume a lot of people like converge onto Boston, if they can't
About-
get to Ireland.
750,000 people show up in my hometown, South Boston, Massachusetts, 0212 F and 7, for the St. Patty's Day parade. And where Paddy comes from. Paddy is also a brand of the Irish whiskey.
Oh,
And you ever heard of the Paddy wagon?
I've heard of the Paddy
police truck?
wagon. Yeah,
Because Patty's been in their points again, and we need to send the wagon to come
there
and
you
get
go.
Patty.
You grab
So-
all of the drunks, all the drunks in my mind. But
Let me-
yeah, I'm sure
This
that
is
there'll be a lot of
true.
drunks in town. And
Dudes
has it
have-
been all weekend? Do they just like show up and just start
Yes,
drinking it
like,
up?
In South Boston itself, you can't buy liquor and beer in convenience stores or gas stations here in Massachusetts
Mm-hmm.
in the Commonwealth. So we have liquor stores.
That's
so
what we have
liquor
here
sto-
in Pennsylvania
Oh,
as well. Yep.
You're a Commonwealth.
They're
as well,
they're
you know?
starting to reach out a little. They have some grocery stores and things, but it's
Mhm.
mainly the idea of liquor stores, like you said. So
You're right.
it's
same
weird
here.
talking to people or going other places. When I went to West Virginia for college, all of a sudden it's like there's just stuff in 7-Eleven, and it
Yeah.
just amazed me. I'm like, really? Like that's crazy. But
Getting a 6-pack at the gas station does not sound like a reasonable idea to me.
no, in college though, it was more malt liquor. We used to get 40s of malt liquor, and that would do us well. Is what it would. But yeah, some of the gas stations you'd even get, basically, Rumpelmintz and Jägermeister. It was
Oh,
crazy.
gosh.
It was crazy. But yeah, so you have a bunch of drunks. To me, it is
Yep.
like the more hateful Mardi Gras. That's what I think
Kind of.
that
That's a
St.
good way to put
Patrick's
it.
Day will be. Like, is
It
there
is.
a parade today? Do they have
Yes.
anything like that?
We
Okay.
have a parade every St. Patty's Day weekend. In South Boston itself, the package stores, we call them packies, and I don't think that's appropriate to
No,
our
not
British
anymore.
audience.
You're going to end up getting
But
canceled.
yeah, no shit. But all the packies close at 4 o'clock today, and any restaurant closes their door. This is just in South Boston at 6:30, and no drinks after 7.
Okay.
And so South Boston actually shuts down pretty early on parade day, and
Okay.
rightfully so. It is
Wow.
for your protection.
Yeah. I'm in Philadelphia, and I'm scared. And that's the thing too. You're in South Boston, and I'm outside of Philadelphia, but both of us are known for being in areas that people just like shake their fist at. Like anytime you
Yeah.
end up having somebody, there's not a lot of people who are like, oh my God, like I really love my time in Philadelphia, you don't end up, especially people who like end up like just getting mad if anything happens in Philadelphia. You know that my
Mhm.
favorite story about Philadelphia though is that they had Hitchbot. You remember Hitchbot? They had a
Which
robot
ones?
that would hitchhike, and they wanted it to hitchhike from Canada down and across the United States. It made it
Uh-huh.
from like somewhere, even got through Boston, I believe, but it made it from upper Canada down. And when it hit Philadelphia, somebody beheaded it. It was over. The Hitchbot dream had ended, and it was very, very upsetting to people. So, yeah,
Oh
that was
my
troubles.
goodness.
That was troubles. But with all that, we are here to talk about comics, not just Hitchbot. Now,
Yeah,
also,
and St. Patty's Day
and
too.
St. Patty's Day, but just to bring up too, what is your opinion on Gritty, the Flyers mascot? Do you enjoy
He's all right.
Gritty? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I
He's
I
fine.
like Gritty, and
We got Blades the Bear here in
yeah,
Boston for our Bruins, and they both came out about the same time. Because the NHL had
hmm
this like new incentive for
they wanted to get
mascots and
those. Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I always blame everything in the modern NHL on the chicken marketing. I
That's what you
swear.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
what I
it's
thought
always the chicken marketing's
I
fault.
I wish that what the Bruins, I wish their mascot was just this suspended Bobby Orr, just
Dude,
jumping in the air after that goal. That would be the best. He's just like
there's a
floating
statue
there.
of that. There's a
Yeah,
statue
it was
outside
awesome.
the garden. The
That's
garden. Yeah.
awesome though with that. But we're here to talk comics. As I said, in
Yes, we are.
Marvel had, one of their typical weeks. Me and Matt Razor
Uh-huh.
that does the regular Marvel show with me,
Uh-huh.
not regular Marvel show, but we start out because you become a regular as well, and people are very excited about that. So
Cool.
I do want to
Yeah.
let you know that a lot of people are fired up that you do some Marvel, and
Why,
we'll be doing
thank
some
you.
DC with me as well. But we
Exactly.
already did Amazing Spider-Man and we did Hell Hunters. And then by the end of this, we'll talk a little bit about the other books and what we've read and
Sure.
whatnot. But in the
Right.
meantime, me and you are going to talk about two books that I think are flying under the radar, and maybe they shouldn't because they're kind of fun. And the
They are
idea of
fun.
these
Yes.
different ways being fun, but still fun, especially this crazy. And I guess it's a weird book to try to get people to maybe put on a pull list because it's a
Mhm.
series of one shots. So the
Right.
idea, you know what I mean? So it's a hard play to say, "Oh my god, you should read this." Really what it comes down to is telling people to read individual issues. And
Right.
if that ends up, it's kind of, I hate to say it, it's kind of a really like a loser's proposition in my mind as you publish it, because it only takes one issue to, oh, I don't really like Fing Fang Foom, and then people will
Right.
lose
I mean,
track
like
of it, right?
last time we enjoyed Fing Fang Foom, I believe like his big tagline was "I am wearing shorts,"
Yeah.
and that's from the Warren Ellis Next Wave Agents of Hate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah. So with it, it's a weird, like if I say to somebody, "Oh my God, you should have read the Captain America Volstagg," and people,
Right.
okay, yeah, I'll check it out.
Like,
Like, I
really?
can't wait for the next issue, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that was a one shot. The next issue is Nick Fury versus Fing Fang Foom.
And
But
Doctor Doom Rocket Raccoon #1 was
yeah, and that too,
really
we
good
didn't
as
even
well
do that.
as
Yeah,
Satisfactory.
but
You know,
it's
and just
hard to get people to like get involved in a bunch of one shots is the thing that I find is odd.
Mhm.
And we had like the 2-for-1, and maybe they should have labeled this something that had a bigger like main title, like
like a spine to it.
Marvel versus, or two for whatever it would be, team ups, crazy. But what it is actually a cool concept. Is the idea of teaming up some characters that usually don't get team ups. You wouldn't
Right.
usually have. And in it, I actually didn't even realize, I was like an idiot when I came into this one, that, oh, there's some verses too, because I actually thought that even as I was reading it, I'm getting the idea that Nick Fury is going to team up with Fing Fang Foom to take down
Mhm.
the Axis powers. That's all I could think of in the deal. But instead, it kind of has a little mystical play in it and is an explanation in a wink, wink way of how Nick Fury got involved in the war and even the Howling Commandos and things like that. So I thought it ended up pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I read through it and had a little smile on my face, mainly because there is some onomatopoeia and stuff like that I believe that Sully
I got some.
has been
Well,
known to like. But I will give you the credits here, and we'll go into it. Nick Fury versus Fing Fang Foom. It is the issue #1 because they're all one shots. Written by J. Michael Straczynski, art by Elena Casagrande, colors by Matteo Iacano, letters by VC's Travis Lanham. And I also like that idea that we get new artists each time. So you kind of get that
Mhm.
cool play. And it's something that just this week we ended up having at DC, the Dan Waters, what is that? Batman Dark Patterns, I believe
Right.
it is. And originally that was going to be 3-issue series or 3-issue story arcs with different artists for each one. But then they ended Hayden Sherman's like, oh man, I'm having so much fun. Let me stay. And I kind of wish that they did change it up. I like when you have things like that and you get different artists and maybe somebody
Legends of the Dark Knight did that.
yeah, and could end
Yeah.
up being like, oh my god, I didn't know about this Elena Casagrande, or oh my god, I didn't do this. And I liked her art in the Black Widow deal, so I was already a fan. You're not as
Ooh.
much a fan, as we'll see as we go on, but
True.
I think her pencils are good, but you're right, you tell them why you're not as big a fan.
Well, one thing I think these books are doing is they're giving us what we've been asking for, A-level talent together
Yeah.
on a book. And I really appreciate that. This is Marvel giving us the best of the best. Casagrande's got some really great faces, great tight pencil work, but I feel that she's really reliant upon the digital assistances of the modern age of comic books, blur effects,
She
pretty
does
much
that a lot. Yeah.
yeah, blank backgrounds that can be filled in by a color artist. You know, I'm a big Bob Ross fan, so I love Happy Little Trees.
You like those?
And I'm trying to. I love Happy
You like
Little
Happy
Trees.
Clouds and things like that?
Yeah, I do.
You
And
do
look at
strike
this.
me as a
That's
guy who likes Happy Clouds, is what I would
buddy.
think.
WWBDD. What would Bob Ross do? Is the mantra of my YouTube approach.
There you go.
I really do. He's my patron saint of being a YouTube creator. I mean, he had 2 cameras and a mic and he had a show. He's my spirit animal.
Yeah. So when
So I love little trees. So I'm like looking at these backgrounds, being like, did she really draw all these little trees? You know, some of it looks a bit
Well,
acidy.
I'll tell you what, the way I described it, and somebody who did have the style, and she does have, and like you said, there's a bit probably of a digital assist and things like that. And again, that was something where you'd have people get really upset about it. It's not tracing, but it is assistance. So some people have a problem. There was Michael Janine ended up having that look a lot. And what I like to think is when I look at this, and I like it, I think it's very cartoony, but I think it kind of fits. But there's not a lot of rough edges. And I think that's what you kind of lose out on. The rough edges of an actual just pencil. And that's where the backgrounds come in, where you have trees and things like that. These do almost look like, okay, I'll duplicate this, and just to make a forest type of deal. And you lose the forest for the trees in that. But when you're doing that, Michael Janine at one point, and I was talking to him, and I actually said, and I bring up this story sometimes. It wasn't me who made him change. It was something that he already said, but he had a problem because I did a thumbnail for a video, and it was like an AI type of thumbnail. And he's like, oh my God, this and that. And I said, well, one time I ended up doing a thumbnail with art from, I like to do it with art from in the book itself, right?
Yeah.
And somebody actually, an artist who will be unnamed, said, I'm going to sue your ass and I'm going to report because it was their art. And I was like, oh man, nobody ever had this problem before. And so I'm like, screw it, I'll do that. And then Michael Janine ended up, arguing with me. And I said, well, I don't draw and I do this. And plus, I kind of got mad and I said, plus, a lot of people think that you do a lot of digital stuff as well. And he's like, I'm changing that too. He said he didn't really do a lot. He just kind of, I don't know, the filters and stuff that you know about and things like
digital
that.
assistances. Yeah. I mean,
And-
it's like, it is the 21st century. We have a complete generation reliant on these digital, shortcuts. I mean, Richard Isanove was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, that I mean, seriously, that's a whole generation. And so these kids, I mean, like I almost pissed someone off one time talking about coloring because I'm like, digital coloring's great and everything, but it's glorified coding. And this person got up their dander up because that's how because they were in their 20s. And I'm like, whoa, no, I'm talking also the ability of art, the Bob Ross palette, mixing your cerulean blue with your alizarin red to, you know what I mean, and a touch of white. We
all can get along, right?
Dude, I love I love color selection. That's the one thing of comics about our hobby, man. I'm continually learning new things about this. And so what I'm learning more about is color theory. I love this stuff, man. Yeah. Never stop learning about comic books.
And he will be on his channel. Sully will be on his channel. I kind of think this is the whole thing that happened this week with this. We were going to record Wednesday night, and we were just going to
Mhm.
record, and I ended up getting in my accident and had some problems, and I still tried, and I just couldn't do it. And then even at one point, I felt bad, and I apologized to you, Sully. I kind of had you stringing. I'm like, just give me an hour. I'll be able to do this. And then eventually, I was like, I can't do it. I'm not going to be able
Oh,
to
that's
go.
the, friendship is letting someone off the hook. You know.
Exactly. So, so I ended up where we just kind of happened to do it today, and then Sully and Gray were doing a live stream last night that I was watching. I'm like, screw it. We'll do it live. So we're going to do this quick, and yeah. So the idea though is I do like Elena Casagrande. I do like her art, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Right.
And again, though, in a one shot like this, I don't mind it as much. And like I said, I like it, but it's a one shot. You go in, some people may not have been aware, and some people might really, really like it. Her faces are great. And you
Right.
can tell that she knows that because there's a lot of close ups with faces and their expressions and
Mhm.
all of that going on. But I do think that sometimes that will take away from some of the scenes because you don't see the wide scene. And it does happen a bit in this, not as much as some others. But this whole thing is the idea where you have Nick Fury and him and Red have this, aerial show. And
Mhm.
it's a setup to get to what you're going to get
Yes.
to. At one point, you realize, okay, we got this beginning where you do have him on a biplane, Red's flying, and
Yep.
he's on the wing. You realize at one point, okay, they just showed us this because he's going to do that when Fing Fang Foom shows up, but it's still good. And it
Yeah,
still
it's a
ends up
great
setting the
cinematic
time.
cold
Yeah.
open. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a cold open. There you go. In medias res, in the middle of the action. Boom, here you go. You don't need much to know. We're going to inform you real quick. And look, so there's some simple action.
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's 1940 England. So you end up
exactly.
starting this up. It's 1940, so the U.S. is not in the war yet. That is mentioned at a point too.
Mhm.
And you do have, the show, and Nick and Red are like, things are getting. It's one of those. It's almost like a vaudeville show
Right.
as well,
He's
or a
not in the
carnival.
army.
Yeah, and
He's
you
not
have to
Sergeant Fury yet.
exactly. And so when you're doing that, yeah, you might move through town to town. They're doing their thing. It's working out right here, right now. But then they get approached by a fella that they end up recognizing, Sam, and he has a job for them. And I felt bad because Red's there, and it's
Mhm.
not called Nick Fury and Red versus Fing
Right.
Fang Foom. So Red just, I have a date in Paris. It's like such a
That's
thin
great.
deal. But he's like, yeah, I got an engagement. Oh, you can't postpone it? No, her husband's gone for this. So he's going to go and get laid while Nick says, yeah, Nick
Yes.
needs the
And,
money.
and that's the whole, subtext. He's going to sneak into occupied Paris.
Yeah.
Which is
To-
kind of like, if you know your history. And that's another thing, because it starts with the narrative caption, October 1940,
Mhm.
England,
Yeah.
which kind of bites itself on the ass by the end. But we'll
Yeah.
get to the end when
Yeah.
we get to the end.
Yeah. So when you're
Stick a pin in that.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're going, and Nick agrees, but it's one of those, hey, I can't tell you exactly what it is until you end up going in. And Nick has a background with Sam, says the last time that I ended up getting involved with you, I ended up fighting Nazis, all this stuff going on. It's not going
Yeah.
to be like that. And he's like, no, it won't be like that. But again, it's almost like at one point he's even smiling. He says, why are you smiling? He's like, don't worry about it. And then they
Don't
go.
worry about it.
And so when they go in, it's basically about China and Japan at this point, that they're having
Which
Japan
is true.
invade China. China needs help. The U.S. and the underdeal is trying to help China to get an ally later in case they go in. It all makes sense. But again, sometimes these things end up being so forced in that people, even though it is true, I mean, this is right on it, it's true, people
Right.
start to get
Japan
these
was-
ideas like, oh, it's trying to push this and that. It doesn't play out like that. It
Well, yeah,
just ends up
historically,
explaining it. Yeah.
Japan was invading mainland China. They took possession of Hong Kong, I believe, in 1936, and so that was a huge part of the Pacific Theater.
Mhm.
Was
Yeah.
the Japanese Empire
Yep.
expanding?
And
And,
their air force, so their air deal
But
was big, so they ended up really being able to do some damage, right?
here's a part that I really enjoyed. It's nice. There's an asterisk, and when Fury was like, "Ah, the last time you nearly got me killed," asterisk, and
Yeah,
it says,
yeah.
"See Sergeant Fury in his Howling Commandos, issue
Very odd,
number
right?
34."
Yeah, there's timey-wimey stuff going on.
But
You know
the
what I mean?
release date was July 7th, 1966,
Yeah.
and it was the origin of the Howlers, the
Yep.
origin, the first
That's pretty
story
cool.
of the Howling Commandos. So this is canonical, and the
Yep.
entire series is canonical for all, because I mean, Sif is in charge of the Rainbow Bridge in that last
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
and so this is I love it. I mean, that's really cool,
Yeah.
and
And you get some cool moments in here with when, this whole play going on. And when they do get to the Chinese border, you're introduced to a couple guys. This guy, Izzy. There's a couple jokes
Mhm.
with the dialogue. And also, it is mentioned even in this where Nick will talk like a pedunk from the Bronx with the regular guys, but he talks like he says Manhattan
Just
type
like
deal
me, man.
fancy.
Yeah,
When he's
I
with
got 2
other
accents.
people, and he says, "Well, my dad told me the only way to get out of the Bronx is to get through Manhattan." But he's like,
South
"I really never
Manhattan,
liked Manhattan, but I love my old man." So I really like that, and it kind of explains
Yeah.
some things. But then when he gets there, you introduce this Izzy, who does explain things about these planes, and what happens is these planes are
Mhm.
disappearing. They're getting shot down, but not by. It's not like they're fighting Japanese fighters. They're being knocked
Right,
down
it's a
for some weird way,
mysterious thing, man.
and then
A
Dum Dum Dugan
mystery.
shows up and starts yelling at Nick. So
But
again, and
now
it was cool, right?
let me tell you something real quick about my comic book history. I grew up in the Bronze Age of comics, reading my uncle's comics on Sundays. My dad would take me to his mom's for Sunday dinner, and just hanging around. I'm an only child, reading my uncle's comics, and I read a lot of Sergeant Fury and his Howling
Really?
Commandos. I read a lot of Sergeant Rock and Easy Company,
Hmm.
GI Combat, The Unknown Soldier. And this
So
was
he
in the late
really liked
70s.
the war comics, is
Dude,
what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Holy
the
moly!
occasional issue of Soldier of Fortune, Rebel from
Yeah,
Rhodesia, you know?
exactly.
Yeah, man.
It was funny
And
when the New 52 hit, and they did try to kind of push some of the,
the war
GI
comics.
Combat at one
Yeah.
point. You even had, I remember the one with there was a big arc with the Haunted Tank, things like that.
Haunted Tank was great.
But yet not a lot of Sergeant Rock, which would have been the one that I think would have sold a little better. Like they ended
Yeah.
up going the kind of obscure route a bit too much there, but they were trying to just throw some
They
some
tried to
weird
make a
stuff.
new Sergeant Rock, like, set
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Afghanistan, right?
yeah,
That was the
yeah. I
thing?
think they should have just went classic and
Yeah,
just
World
kept
War
that.
II
Yeah,
stories.
because
Yeah.
people do. Again, it's still a niche thing, but it's kind of cool when you
Well,
get to it.
yeah, but we're being introduced one by one to the core of the Howling
Yep.
Commandos. With
Yeah.
Izzy, Dum Dum, Gabe, and Jim Morita.
Yep.
And it was, dude, this was a 1961 comic book, and look at all the diversity
Mm-hmm.
in this.
Yeah.
It has always been a diverse, robustly representative universe.
It's true. And
It
when they
really
do
has.
this, even if you don't know a lot about the Howling Commandos, if you everybody's going to recognize Dum Dum. But if you
Right?
don't really
Yeah.
recognize them, they don't. It's not really stressed or pushed in a way that it's just kind of cool, and it even could be Easter eggs for some people. But most people would probably
Mhm.
recognize the idea. Okay, these are the beginnings of the Howling Commandos. But they end up, because they're in China, they're on the border. They have a monk that ended up seeing one of the planes getting shot down, and they've been talking to him, and the higher ups don't believe what the guy's saying, and even at one point, it's a good thing when Marita's there and he's the translator, and the
Yes.
Sam comes, hey, is he sobered up? Is he not drink? They're like, these guys don't drink.
Monks
he's
don't
not,
drink,
he's
sir.
not the
It's
deal.
just like,
Whatever. Like,
whoa, be
and he
serious.
says that a cloud with teeth ended up attacking the plane. And again, I like the idea that you would have these sort of like urban type legends, wartime legends of things like that. Even when you end up having pilots, especially when you'd have
Mhm.
pilots more like World War I and things, but even to the idea, oh my God, he must be immortal, or there must be 5 of them, or you get that play. But the idea in China, and there's a cloud with teeth, yeah, that's pretty intriguing. And Nick's like, yeah, I'll go check it out. Like,
Mhm.
okay. And he's like, oh, I'll take that biplane. I'm not going to take the regular. And they do talk about the planes. And he says, we need a looker. We need something of a plane that's not so fast. Those guys who got hit probably didn't even see what hit them or whatnot. I
Right.
need to be able to look over the deal. We're there for reconnaissance. This
They
will
were
do us better.
they
And
were
right
making
then,
reference
yeah,
to
what's that?
Mustangs, the
Yeah,
Flying Tigers, like, who were doing unauthorized, under the book's kind of assistance of and overseas.
Yeah.
That's some cool stuff, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really cool the way that it's spelled out. Once they point out the biplane, I'm like, yep, he's going to be on
There
that
we go.
wing. There is no way that he's not doing that wing walking stuff. But
Here comes the parachute trick
works.
again.
Yeah, it works though.
It works.
But they need, and I didn't even think of the idea. It's like, yeah, I'll take that biplane. But the problem is, it is funny where it almost feels like nobody there on the base. The plane's there. It's right there on the airstrip, and they're, hey, I'll take that. Oh, we don't have a lot of people who can fly that. Is that why it's just sitting there? Like, they're like, we can't move it. Nobody knows how to fly this damn thing. But you get one of the last of the introduced Howling Commandos. When he comes in, Gaben says, yeah, I can fly it. And goes through a quick explanation. I worked on the farm. My dad, I can fly just about anything, even that. I just wonder why it's there. Like, it's just there. People are like, I don't know how to fly that. Let's just move along. But he gets in and off they go. And they and even then the dialogue is,
and it's a great
really
introduction too to Gabe, because if you didn't know it, back in 1940, the United States Army Air Corps was segregated. And Gabriel is black.
Yep, he is.
And so that aforementioned baked in, they had diversity. They had Asian American characters, African American characters.
Yep.
What I mean? A Jewish character in Izzy Cohen. I'm not even sure if he's Jewish, but I'm just,
you would assume.
The tells, the coding and the name.
Yep.
They keep things simple. That's what comics used to be.
Again, and obviously back in the day it wouldn't have been pushed, and it's not really pushed here. You just kind of go with it. And the explanation of a lot of this, these guys are quote unquote retired, American airmen and military, because they're not officially allowed to be there. So they're off the books, retired, kind of going. So it even blends in with that. But they go out and they see Fing Fang Foom, and like, is that the cloud? Oh my God, yeah, it looks like it. And that's where you get that kind of that effect, where it's that blur effect, which I think looks pretty cool. But like you said, it does look like it's a little enhanced type deal. Man. But yeah, I like it. And in that, they don't know what to do. I mean, this thing is, and they don't react as if, oh God, it's a dragon. I mean, you can kind of see that it's a dragon, but they're like, oh my God. And you end up where they're spinning around. Nick says, go around and go. And you do have Gabe say, well, I have to get around to fire on it. But he says, don't worry, I'll do that.
Worry about it.
Yeah. And then
he picks up the machine gun himself.
Yeah, the machine gun. He's going to go out on the wings. I'm like, at one point, he even yells like bank left or whatever. And I'm like, there's no way he's staying on there. I don't think that he really, but he does do that for a living, it seems, at the bit. But Nick's also hearing a voice in his head. And it's Fing Fang Foom. And we get a spread page. And we get that and says, you've entered my domain. Again, I thought along those times it was going to be, they're going to do some wacky thing. They're going to recruit Fing Fang Foom to be part of this under covert U.S. deal. And that would have been ridiculous. It's Fing Fang Foom here who has been awoken by the war that's going on. And he's pretty pissed. And he's going to take down this plane as if it's just like a fly, like it's a pest. And
he's got plans for world domination.
Oh, yeah, of course. And this is where I go into this, and I'm an idiot. And when we do so many comics and do so many reviews, a lot of times it didn't sink in that this is Nick Fury versus Fing Fang Foom. And I'm like, oh, this makes more sense then. And he's doing this again. It's not Fing Fang Foom going like, oh, you threat to, he just is like, you're a nuisance. Like, I just want to get rid of you. In the meantime, Nick has to make sure this Gabe, I wish it was sus Gabe, ends up having to, you got to get out of here. Like, I will cause a diversion. Now, how do you cause a diversion when there's a flying dragon? He just jumps off the wing of the plane and parachutes what looks like right into its mouth at one point. With a machine gun. It's pretty cool. That's the thing. That's what's fun about a book like this, where even like you said, it has ties into the continuity and the canon, things like that, but it's still just for fun. It is Nick Fury jumping out of a biplane with a parachute, shooting a machine gun into the mouth of Fing Fang Foom.
Dragon.
And so and then he lands, and then Fing Fang. It's like a weirdest foot race chase deal where Fing Fang Foom's trying to catch Nick Fury.
Basically, chases Nick into his lair.
Yeah, in his lair.
Trap the hero. Yep. This is not reinventing the wheel whatsoever. It's just a nice smooth ride.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And when you get it, I knew the idea because you're a spiritual fella. I've said
Yes.
it before. I'm also afraid of ghosts, but you're more spiritual than me. And so when you go into this temple, it does play off in this spiritual way that when Fing Fang Foom came, he's in this temple that is an ancient time. And Fing Fang Foom says, and this is something that's very common. I've had a couple even Elseworld stories. There's one with Batman, the Book of the Dead, where you explain that Atlanteans, they were aliens, they're going to hook up humanity, but humanity's not ready. So they end up having the pyramids, they leave stuff, and then when humanity's finally ready to discover it, then they can end up ascending and things like that. Fing Fang Foom's there, and he is slumbering because when he got to Earth to take it over, it wasn't quite good enough for him to get it.
Wasn't ripe.
Yeah, and
You know?
it's funny because you think of the idea of Fing Fang Foom like, did he just want television, so he's not bored? But it's more like he wanted a challenge even. And he's like, you guys
wanted
with your
some
sticks and
records,
stones.
deep cuts from that age.
Exactly. He needed dirty
acetates.
songs and you needed
Some
AI.
acetates from the 40s.
See,
you
that's
know?
what would confuse Fing Fang Foom. He says, I want the AI, I want this to elevate itself to the point where then you can go back and do 40s songs that sound like they're dirty songs. See, it's a back and forth with it. But he's in this temple, and when Nick goes in, he ends up, we talked about Star Wars in our last time we talked. It really feels like we're on Dagobah in the tree. Nick Fury goes into a room, and it's set up where Fing Fang Foom says, this temple, though, they were ahead of their time. They had this, they called this the path to the stars, all this. And Nick has a vision of what could happen and what will happen. And you even have the explanation. These are, again, this is almost straight up from Yoda. These are things that have happened, could happen, may happen. And he's seeing basically a lot of troubles with World War II.
He's seeing the World War II spill over into America.
Yeah. And
'cause
really
it
into
hasn't
America,
yet.
right? Yeah.
Because remember, in here, the Americans, we did not enter World War II until basically 1942 almost.
Yeah,
and we
almost.
would not enter Europe until D-Day.
Yep. Yeah.
And
So it's a bit.
seriously.
So with all
We were in
that,
Africa,
he
we
sees
were,
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, the war is raging on in Europe and around. We were just kind of hanging tight. We'll get to the end here where we will have what I think you were referring to earlier, but you end up where you have Nick's like, oh my God. Like, and again, it was played out pretty well at the beginning where Nick doesn't really want to get involved that much. It wasn't really played out full out. Like, no way, man. He's just doing his thing. But we know it's Nick. We know how he feels. And even meeting the Howling Commandos, things like that, we kind of know what's going to be going. But this seems to be like, hey, we're going to explain what actually inspired him. He saw what could happen.
Right. He saw this what if.
Yeah, that's what it is.
What if the Nazis win?
Yeah.
And I think there's some really elegant baked in progressive values in here and reverse engineered in your big bad. Now, where you can have that kind of, thing where Fin Fang Foom is telling Nick Fury, at last a level of technology and a dictatorship that can serve me at a time when your world is at its weakest, exhausted from war. It's like, there's no need for me to spend myself fighting your people when you will do the work for me.
Yeah. Actually, I really like that.
Shit.
I really like the idea. And again, if you're going to play a message, like things are so forced. So things nowadays, that's what gets people. I don't think it's sometimes the message. It's the idea of how forced it is. The idea of this, basically, even in what it kind of works out, the idea is, listen, we all hate each other. And we're all fighting. Fing Fang Foom says, I'm just going to sleep a little longer. You guys are just going to kill each other off. And then I don't even have to do anything. I'm just going to be here. And that is the subtle type of messages that I actually like in comics and stuff from the past, when you did have people say, oh, there's always been that. There's always been social messaging and well, yeah, there has. Just sometimes. And also I always say to people, that doesn't make it inherently good anyway. It still has to be a good story, but some of the subtle things, and that's a pretty cool way of, explaining the idea
that stuff, baking it in. I call it baking it in.
Yeah.
I'm a professional chef, so a lot of this stuff boils down to me for professional metaphor.
Yeah.
So like You know what I did? I took these broccoli stems and I riced them and I put them into your food, and you're gonna have great poops now because of
I wish.
the non-soluble fiber.
I think that's
You
what I
know,
need. I do. I
and
do
you're
want
not
to
even gonna
mention.
notice.
I want to mention that I worked with this guy. This guy's his name was Big Bob. The guy was about 600 pounds. He was huge.
Oh shit!
So he worked at Denny's when he was like 20, and he still, to the day he died, which he did end up dying amazingly of a heart attack, but he ended up dying to that day. He said that he should be considered a professional chef because indeed he was paid to do. I don't think that most people would consider that. Are you going to solve this for me? Was he a professional chef? Or was he just a short order cook that worked at a kind of a little level above a fast food restaurant, but not much? It was Denny's. I used to get mad at the guy. I'd yell at him. I'm like, what, you just because you made a moon over my hammies, doesn't mean that you're a professional chef. Just stop it. I get so mad at that guy.
I know what you mean. I'm a professional chef, and I put myself out to pasture by working for a university.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do like so many restaurant nights and weekends and brunches and sauces.
I'm sure it's a little better. I'm sure it's a little more less stress for you, right?
It's actually nice. Yeah, I put myself out to pasture.
I do think that anytime like there's shows and movies, anytime you want to show a lot of people stressed out and at each other's, and they just have them work in a restaurant. And they're about to kill each other every day.
Dude, I cannot watch Gordon Ramsay or Hell's Kitchen. It's like going to work.
Yeah,
no thank you.
Yeah. There you go. It's probably worked for some other people, except Gordon Ramsay. He seems to love yelling at people. Kind of a nice guy though. But you end up where you even have Fing Fang Foom talking. You had the Howling Commandos deal of, man, this is pretty cool. Fing Fang
Foom, in to save Nick, which is great.
They do, and they come in
and heroes.
And even that where you have, and it's a good line. And Dum Dum, remember at the beginning, Dum Dum's like, oh, and it's natural dialogue in something like this, especially a wartime comic type deal of, oh man, who let this piece of crap in here? And then they slap hands, and then later they'll come and save you.
And and just it's pretty fun
because Oh, you go.
Well, because it's like, the Howlers come in. It's the nucleus of this is the core of the Howling Commandos. It's Gabe, Izzy, Dum Dum, and Marita, and then you have people that come and go and get killed during the time of the entire spans of Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. It went until like what 1980 or so.
Yeah.
It was like 20 years of World War II stories.
Yeah, it's crazy.
4 times longer than the war.
Yeah, really. That's like the idea that MASH went way longer than the Korean War. It's kind of funny.
Then we have another asterisk because
that's what I liked. Yeah.
And it's Fin Fan Foom, you know what I mean, is going back to sleep, and I will return one day in like 25 years or something.
Yep.
And it's Strange Tales 89, which is a real book that was released in July 11th, 1961.
Yep. So you go by the timing. He's right. He knows what's happening. I like where he says that. He's like, one such like he gets into it. I could sleep for this amount. I think I'll go for this amount to just get that. It was kind of funny. Again, he's just going to sleep thinking that when he wakes up, the world is just going to be destroyed, everybody, and it'll be easier to take over and things like that. And maybe some people could argue that it was, but you end up where after that. Now, in that, you do end up then going back and Nick saying to Sam, listen, because Sam pays him. Here you go.
Right.
We're done. Almost plays off. If you want to play it off, it plays off like Han Solo a lot. You end up where, oh man, I thought you got your money, and laugh, but he's doing it. It's a
simple story beat.
Yeah, it is. And that's what makes that work. And then Nick's like, yeah, you know what? I think I might end up just enlisting here. I probably would anyway. And he kind of like hems and haws around. I don't think he wants this Sam to really like get some pleasure from it seems. But he says, I think I'm going to do it. We're going to end up having to do it anyway. U.S. is just about in, and I'm going to get involved. I need to do something about all this. It's the vision he saw. I thought, and again, I think that maybe it's because of how these things are set up. I actually thought this should have been the ending when he says, sometimes you got to go where the dragon is. And then the end. And that's awesome. Like this sets it up. You do then have a bunch of pages that, again, I don't know. It's just a couple, but I don't know that you have to catch up with Red again and end up there and then have them be at Pearl Harbor because it's 2 months later. I'm like, I don't know that I needed that, but you go.
Here's the stumble. The book opens um, in October of 1940.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Pearl Harbor Day is not until 1941.
Yep, yeah, yeah.
So there is a
There's a gap.
forgivable error here
Yeah.
that
And
nobody caught.
what it should have been and what they do, I think what they're playing is he enlists, he goes through basic training, and then he is sent to Pearl Harbor as his first play of where he
Right.
is. That is a little bit of time, but it should have said that. He should have
Yeah.
said to Red, and Red's in with him too, and should have said, "Man, thank God basic training is over and we've spent the last 6 months," something like that, because there is a jump, and it
Right,
doesn't
yeah,
make just by
14
saying
months
2
would have
months,
been more
because
appropriate.
the 2 months later does not work from where it went.
No,
It doesn't. So,
unless
yeah.
Pearl Harbor Day happens in Marvel Comics in
Yeah.
1941, 40,
Maybe 40.
December 7th. And I don't think so. That's,
Or
no.
he was hanging with Fing Fang Foom for a year. We didn't realize there was a weird play. But yeah, in that you do
Yeah.
get the classic and oh my God, and the planes are coming in. They're like, oh my God, it's incoming.
It's,
And
yeah.
then you get a really cool ending page that is one of those that it could be, if you were a Howling Commandos type of fan, it's something that maybe Elena Casagrande could like sign at conventions and things, because it's really
Mhm.
cool. I thought it looked cool.
Yeah,
Again,
put it on
you
t-shirts,
like
man.
more of like, hand deal. It does look like it's got some assets, but I thought it was pretty cool. And then it
Yeah.
ends, and
I'm
you
not
get the
knocking
deal.
her craft.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's a generational thing. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm blessed and grateful that we still have Nick Klein out there.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and Yule actually in the comments said that these are selling pretty well. So that's cool. I do still wish that there was something like a branding of it so that you can kind of get an idea just by walking past or whatnot. But I'm sure
Mhm.
the covers are pretty cool and they are wacky enough. I think that would be the play. You know what I mean? Like you go
Great
by and like
Gary
Fing Fang
Frank
Foom.
cover. Dude, this is-
Okay, like pretty cool.
I
So
almost picked up the B cover. I hadn't read it yet on New Comic Book Day, and I already had a huge stack of funny books, man. I spent
Mhm.
like $42 at the shop this week. But I saw it was there on the shelf, and I'm like, should I just buy it? And you're probably gonna like it. And they had the Elena Casagrande
mhm.
B cover, and which I thought was more striking. And I was like, oh, you got one left, and I
Now,
love getting a variant cover just because I can.
yeah, you get
You
those
know,
variants. You get them a
I
lot.
do.
You're always talking about that. Again,
Because I can. Yeah. I
and
mean, yeah.
especially because me and you end up doing some stuff together, and I
Mm,
get the review copies from Marvel. They haven't cut me off yet, but
not yet.
I do send you what we're going to talk about, and if you like it, you still go buy it. We talked about it
Correct.
before. That is
Yeah.
the way to do it. That's the cool way. Like you
I'm
really
gonna go
don't
pick it
have
up.
to, and you're not getting it illegal. We're reviewing it. We're getting it for review
Yeah.
purposes, but yet you'll still go and get stuff and support stuff that you like. So I do appreciate that and think it's very cool. But what would you give this?
I'm gonna give it a solid 8.
Yeah.
I have to take off some point. I would have given it a higher
I'm an
score.
8.5, and I think I'm that little bit that you would take off is not
Yeah.
as in my
That just
craw. I'm not a hateful
it doesn't
person
stick
like
in my
you,
craw, but
is what it
yeah.
is.
But it's like I mean, that's a glaring that's an unforced error. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's not December 7th, 1940. It's supposed to be a year later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was weird. They didn't even really that 2 months later. You didn't have to put that. If you didn't have that,
Right.
me and
You
you would
didn't have
say,
that.
"Oh, he's he's
That's
enlisted,
kind of
he's there."
obvious.
It was a
Yeah.
weird play. Why add something? And that's the worst when people add something. It happens in arguments too, and when people
Mhm.
are talking, or even when they're reviewing stuff. I see a lot where they go one step too far. You didn't need to do that. Like you just went one thing, you messed it up. But yeah, I'm
You
giving it an
should have just
8.5.
yeah.
I liked it. I liked it. And these are now becoming like a weird deal of like a guilty pleasure, but I don't feel that guilty. But I feel
I'm
like, oh my God, this is a fun thing. It's almost like a palate cleanser. It's
yeah.
not going to change the world, but it's some fun little things. And the next one is Hulk and Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking forward to
okay,
that.
that
And
seems
I'm
pretty
looking forward
cool.
to Galactus versus Ghost Rider.
Yeah, you have
You
that,
know,
and then I
that's
believe you have oh God,
Spider-Man versus the Marvel Universe.
yeah.
Interesting.
Did you see the at one point? Then it does say plus May Parker and Agatha Harkness team up in the most unlikely manner.
Hmm,
Looks like it'll be in the next issue, so there's going to be a bit of a backup. Maybe they just couldn't get enough
interesting.
story out of Hulk and Doctor Strange, which seems pretty cool. But yeah, and
I'll
then
say this.
Spider-Man versus the Marvel Universe. There's a couple left. I'm into
So
it.
far, JMS is 3 for 3.
Yeah,
That's yeah, I feel that. I like
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like a jerk that we didn't end up doing that first one because I just thought, oh, that seems
You know,
ridiculous.
it
And
just now in hindsight, you can always do a retro. You can always do a
yeah,
once it's all done. Maybe it all ties together in the last issue.
I'll
As
tell
a
you, one
combine.
of the reasons why I didn't do it only was because I have been so down on some Marvel stuff that I hate to say it. A lot of times I assume it's going to be nonsense.
Yeah.
And then I will check it out to see, but I kind of that week we were doing other things or whatever, and because of the idea, Marvel's a bunch of hooey right now,
Hey,
especially the bigger books. But this is
my
good.
mom said to me all the time, "Live and learn, kid. Live and learn."
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like, you know what? These JMS one shots, they got the sauce. They
Yeah.
really do.
My
Yeah.
mom, my mom said to me once, "What the hell are you doing? Make your own dinner." That's
Make
what
your own
she
dinner.
said.
Make your own damn cake.
She was not very nice. Here, we'll go to the next fucking Sabertooth, The Dead Don't Talk. And it's number 4. It's written by Frank Tieri, art by Michael I always say it wrong. I know that somebody told me how, but I want to say it's Sta Maria, but it's like, I
Saint
can't.
Maria.
Sta Maria, I can't.
Is
Somebody
it
told
like
me
Saint?
how it acts. Saint Maria. That's what it is. It's Saint Maria, I believe. Colors by Rachel Rosenberg, VC Joe Sabino. Another book that's under the radar.
Yes.
This book is a weird one, again, because it's just a side book. It's kind of its own thing. It's pretty much, I mean, right from the beginning, you said, and everybody said who read it, it's Gangs of New York. It's Gangs of New York with
Yes.
Sabertooth. And so when you have that, you even had, I believe, the second issue, which was called Fangs of New York. I'm like, they even know. Frank Tieri is well aware of this. And sometimes the books like this end up being, and I was told by a couple people. I remember at one point it was Scott Snyder who, out of the blue, said something because I was explaining in a review one of his stories. It was Batman or something when he was doing New 52. I forget what it was, but I ended up saying, it's like Fast and the Furious meets Police Academy, like something like that. And he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, it was weird." He's like, "Please don't do that sort of thing, because when people hear that, you think that it's derivative of everything else and that it's not original and things like that." So I always think of the deal of saying, "Oh, this is Gangs of New York meets this or whatever," but it kind of is.
Yeah,
And
well,
it
seems to me
plays it
like
up good.
joyous way of cobbling together an association that someone else could, being like, "Hey,
It
how can I
gets
sell this
people
to you?"
in. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the springboard, because who doesn't love Police Academy? So you
Right.
end up having that all the time. So you end up with that. But in this, though, I will tell you, because I read the first issue and I just kind of was like, it's okay. But
too.
it
Yeah.
felt like it wasn't necessary. I didn't love it. So I kind of went off. But you kept reading it and you kept telling me, "Oh, it's good. It's good." So I
Yeah.
said,
The
"Why don't
art
we do it
impressed me
this week?"
more and more.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
yeah, and
I read all the issues this week. I went through it, and with that, I rarely get to say this. I said this recently because I was catching up with, say, the Batman Full Moon that me and Gray talked about in the DC deal. I'm not one to
Ooh.
be able to say a lot of, "Hey, it reads better in trade." I don't really read trades. I end up reading them as they come out, and then I'm done,
Yep.
moving on to the next thing, which is one of the bad things about reviewing so much. You don't have a time to go back and kind of, enjoy something again and things like that. Always
Right.
moving forward, we are. But with that, I just went through this. I think I will read better in trade. I think that it's really good. And at one point, when you have the Gangs of New York, once you start getting the superpower, it feels like the Warriors, even in a gritty sort of, again, Warriors meets Gangs of New York, but it's definitely Gangs of New York. But once you end up having Dragonfire show up in the second issue going into this, it's one of the better things. If you didn't have that, Sabertooth by himself just wasn't, you might get bored of it, but it's really good. And the ins and outs with Fisk and all this stuff going on is good. And in this, when you're going through, they end up wanting to take care of the other gangs. They're taking over all the gangs, and they go to this, what is the
Right. We just did that over in
vampires.
Spider-Man as well with
Yeah.
gang war in
Yeah,
a way.
that was great.
You know what I mean? Tombstone had this huge play for cobbling together all the gangs.
Yeah. And
No,
the worst, though, is in the gang war, you got that map and you're like, none of this stuff is playing out. I kept like, what is going on? Like, is this? And then at the end, they just meet in Central Park. At least this has some underplay, and you have
Or a rumble.
Sabertooth, who has been playing it like you would. He's there for himself. He uses Fisk. He takes Fisk out. And even at the point in this, when they take down the vampires, the Bowery Boys and everything else that they've taken down. Now they control the gangs, and it kind of ends up being prophetic where you have Dragonfire say, let's get the hell out of here. Like, I love you, you love me, let's go. There's nothing else we can do, and we have a target on our back. And that's the thing you don't normally hear about a lot of gang leaders, like in this day, or even mob bosses. They usually end up dying in jail or dying. It never really, there's few and far between that end up escaping the nonsense by the end, and she just wants to get out of there. But even then, this is full of action. You end up with a vampire fight that everybody would like. You got the Draculas going on. And I do like where they're talking, because Dragonfire has to save Sabertooth at one point because he almost gets overtaken by these vampires. And then he's like, yeah, claws through the heart work too. And they just start ripping apart everybody. And it looks cool. And then, of course, Dragonfire loves to set things on fire. She does that a lot. And she ends up doing that, but they end up making out. And then the people already realize, oh, my God, they're the ones who are, the gang leaders and leading it. But you could go from there, because in that, it's not the idea of them like sitting high on the hog or whatever. It's pretty quick that things go down. But you also have this Marmaduke Dix, which is a great name. He ends up being a futurist, and he ends up with, the world fairs, and I'm going to do this and that. And he's been railing in against the gangs. We find out that he's, trying to, and they don't really say it yet, but it feels like what he's doing is trying to get the rent low, right? So he can come up and buy up everything of the 5 points and turn it into whatever he wants. But in the meantime, people are already, plotting against Creel and Dragonfire, and it kind of plays out weird. But you go from there because they're in bed talking a little pillow talk, sexy talk,
pillow talk,
like you enjoy, I know. And when this happens, though, why didn't he? He just ends up where he's like, I'm really happy here. I think and he actually, there's some little innuendo, like, man, that never happened before. And she's like, I think it did. Like, it's happened a lot of times. Like, no. I mean, I think I'm in love with you. And then she says, yeah, let's get the hell out of here. But you go from there because it just was a weird progression at this one point to what happens.
Well, he finally kind of has this moment of being content, something that he's always historically trying to taking away from his rival, Logan. Or James. You know what I mean? How wherever he is historically. And usually it's Sabertooth, it's Victor, who is heartless, and he's a woman killer. That's pretty awful for any villain. I mean, that you would just especially killing love interests too. I mean, and I don't want to moonwalk into the fridging argument. You know what I mean?
I just want to mention too that Mark Jager is in the live stream chat, and he said that he loves when you say the stack of funny books.
The stack.
He ended up liking that. That was pretty cool. It is the stack of funny books. I hear floppies and funny books from you a lot, but yeah, dude, when they are going to bed, Dragonfire says, and it makes sense. She's like, let's go to the Savage Lands. Like,
we can live free.
I wanted Sabertooth to go, well, what's up with these Savage Lands? Can you explain them? She's like, they're savage. He's like, I'm in.
Yeah,
the deal. And
there's been a monster in the background called the Crocodilian.
Yep.
And is a little aloof and elusive. And he plays in at the end of this book because we find out the identity of the Crocodilian really is this Marmaduke Dix.
And what happens is
orchestrating everything from the shadows, like Palpatine.
This is where I don't get. They end up where they go to bed, and then Sabertooth wakes up, and he's all ripped apart.
Yeah,
and Dragonfire's dead. I'm like, no,
it's
that was
pretty
some
gruesome.
Tough sleep that he had.
Yeah,
and she's dead. I mean, ripped apart. The whole place is covered in blood, and he realizes right away this is crocodile
sense of
prints.
Security, feeling at peace, feeling that feeling love, feeling that content. You let your
that's
guard
the problem. How many movies do you have, mob movies or anything like that, where the minute that the people get what they want and settle down and have contentment, they're dead. They're done because you don't have the edge.
That's the nadir, the Act 2 nadir for the villain, or that anti-hero. It's just like you're gonna get it all taken away from you. Don't stop to smell the roses. Don't feel happy.
Just if you ask Frank Castle right now, what was I was having a great picnic. It was the best ever. Picnic. Oh no. It's right before that, right?
Aaron wanted to leave.
Batman's like, this is the best viewing of Zorro I've ever seen. This day can't get any better. And then all of a sudden it happens. So you end up where, again, you have Sabertooth, and he just like stumbles out onto the street.
Yeah.
He is ripped apart too. His healing factor obviously is kicking in.
Saved him. Yeah,
Yeah.
he even says in the narrative caption is like, my healing factor is the only thing that saved
Yeah.
me.
So
But he finds a newspaper.
yeah, that's the
and it
big
says
deal.
Mad Dog Murphy, his alias.
Yep.
King of New York underworld. Dead.
Dead.
It's already a
It's
headline.
been reported. It's a headline,
Yeah.
and that is something he's like, because he assumed he was dead because he ripped him apart, not realizing the healing factor was going to save him. So when he comes out and he's like, this is bull crap, and this has been something that's going on where Hearst has been really on these headlines, really pushing Dix's
William
headlines
Hearst,
and things like
real
that. Yeah,
life
and playing it in. I thought he was
newspaper
going to
magnate.
die in this. But you end up where Sabertooth then looks at this and like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is ridiculous. Something's going on here. They shouldn't have. I'm not dead, and they're reporting it, so it's an inside job. So he wonders what's happening, and then out of nowhere, you do end up seeing a claw that I like the idea that it looks like it could be the crocodilian with like a red sweater or something on. But he comes in, and it's actually Fisk, and he has that mecha armor that he had before. It's so funny in my mind. This is very quick. And it does have a bit of humor to it, the idea that Fisk says, I finally figured out how to use this bucket of bolts, and I'm going to kill you now. And he goes and attacks. It's funny. But he doesn't really know how to. Yeah.
It's like a steampunk Iron Man. It's like a steampunk Stark armor.
Yep, it looks really cool.
You know?
I love
Exactly.
steampunk anything.
Me
So
too,
I
yeah.
love it. So you end up, and especially the goggles that every steampunk guy wears. I love those
Goggles,
goggles.
yeah.
They're the best. Yeah, usually goggles in with a big giant top hat. And I'm in, and the goggles on the top hat never used to cover your eyes. They're just aesthetic
Where are they fighting?
goggles.
The Manhattan Bridge or or
Yeah.
the Brooklyn Bridge? Which bridge do you think they're fighting
I
on?
would believe that this is probably the Brooklyn Bridge, but you don't get a full out. I'm looking at the deal because my wife loves the Brooklyn Bridge, and seeing the one play when he first picks him up, that's what it looks like to me. I should walk around the house right now. We have about 7 paintings and pictures. The Brooklyn Bridge. I'm like, well, what's the deal with this thing? I walk by and I shake my head. I give a shout out to the Burrows every time. But you end up where Creel is getting beat up, but then he just kind of hits and this thing is emissions not a problem back in the day. This thing is just spitting out everything. Greta would have a field day. She'd be so upset at this. So you end up where all this going on, he doesn't really know how to use the suit very well, and you end up where Creel just reaches in and kind of rips it apart and throws him off the bridge. I love the idea as he's going down, he just looks so sad. Fisk is like, yep, I'm screwed. Like he's not yelling. He's just like, well, I gave it a shot, because he's just sinking to the bottom of the bay. He's done. And again, there's through this, there's been some like action movie type of dialogue and things like that, where you have Sabertooth say, hey, we're going to see who rises up above. But right now I know who's on the bottom of the river, that is. And I want him to yell, do you hear me, Fisk? I just made a joke. And Fisk starts laughing down at the bottom of the river. But you end up where all that going on, still Sabertooth is pissed. How did they report this? This is an inside job. Who's involved in this crocodilian he's trying to find? And at one point he was trying to use his senses to try to find him, but unfortunately Fisk interrupted, so they're not going to be able to do that. But he goes to Hearst's office, and I guess Bobby here, his assistant of hers, he's dead. He ends up where he says, I got a little too enthusiastic when I was doing the little interrogation. But
Bob's unavailable.
Yeah, but he's dead. He's dead tired.
Eat on his desk,
That's what he
you know
needs.
I mean?
He's just there.
My friend is dead tired.
At least he lived. You have a pillow for my friend. At least he has his head still. He didn't lose his head. You end up
Sully,
where Hearst.
remember I said I'd kill you last? I lied.
Sully. That's I'm really up. You really upset me that I don't have that soundbite for you.
Oh,
I need that soundbite from.
You'll find it. Don't worry. It's always next week.
I do have others that we could have instead, like this one. That doesn't make any sense. So
pick up the one from the airport before that, like, hey, Sully.
I will.
Promise.
I'm
last.
gonna get them all. Oh my goodness. But Hearst is, oh my God.
I let him go.
I let him go. So you end up where he says, who was it? Who tried to kill me? Who did this? And Hearst says, because Hearst, again, he's a newspaper man.
How'd you
He
know
ain't
it's
no
supposed
fighter.
to be dead?
He says Dix. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
What Dix? And he's like, Dix feeds me information from my papers about the gangs. The truth is, he runs the gangs. He's running them,
Yeah,
and
that's the truth.
yeah, and
This is great
so this is a
artwork
big
here.
deal.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's a 6-panel grid, but there's some wonderful just hatching and cross hatching and
yeah,
great light source and shadowing. I
yep.
mean, I really dig this art. This is what
And
the art is what sold me in issue 2 on this.
I agree. And what I like about it, again, it's a longer, like 6-panel grid, like you said, but you're
Mhm.
changing the angles throughout. You're changing them as people speak
Yeah,
and things like
good
that.
camera work.
So it has that vibrant deal. A lot of times, even when you get that 9-panel grid, it's just, and one of the big things was in the Heroes in Crisis and things like that, where you would get it, but also Mr. Miracle. And one of the things, it's Tom King books. He uses that
Mhm.
a lot. Mitch Garage uses it. And even Mitch Garage he got a little flack at one point, I believe, for the Mr. Miracle of the idea where
Mhm.
nothing was changing. It looked like you were just repeating panels. Dialogue was
Right.
changing,
I
but it
mean,
wasn't
we don't
giving
think
you
Dave
the
Gibbons
deal.
anymore. We
Yeah,
think
and
freaking Tom
that's the
King.
thing. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to, get the idea of that. But in this, I did like it. I like the art a lot. And especially by the end, and you do see where Sabertooth's mad, but at the end, really going in on his face and seeing his fangs and the idea of
Yeah.
what's
Where's
happening.
Dix?
Yeah, where's
Like, he's in the
Dix?
hospital. He's got burns all over him. Did
Yeah,
you see
yeah, that's the
burns?
best. And he's like, "Did you
'Cause
see
that's
Burns?" Yeah, because
that's Dragonfire defending herself as she's
yep,
getting killed.
yep.
You know what I mean?
So you see him there, and again, it's the play of, oh man, like she did fight back. That's cool. But when you end
Yeah.
up seeing it, you see the transformation. You find out that Dix is the
Right.
crocodilian, and that's pretty cool. Like I didn't
It
see
is.
that coming. I thought it was a lizard,
Me
and I
neither.
thought they were
Yeah.
just doing wacky stuff with crocodile stuff, sort of deal. But yeah, in fact, it is. It is
It's a
Dix.
simple story turn. It was, it was hiding in plain sight or
Yeah.
just unrevealed. These are simple storytelling, story beats that are, they're conventional, they're reliable, and this doesn't subvert expectations. This fulfills expectation.
Yep. Yeah.
It just delivers a decent
Yeah.
story.
And
This is fine.
I
like
don't
it.
hear anybody talking about it. I don't hear anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody's said to me, "Oh my God, you got to read." Well, you did, but seriously, Sully,
That's
you
cool. That's why
say it about every book. When you end up, you got to read this Marvel Mutts. It's the best thing I've ever read. And I'm like, yeah,
Goodness.
we'll see.
Jeff the Land Shark finally
Jeff the
got
Land
his redemption
Shark.
arc when he was
Exactly.
looking for.
But
Pizza Dog joined in on the
hey,
fun.
yeah, everybody, all the great pets were there. I did like this though, and I'm glad that you ended up telling me to read it, and I caught up. And I think
Thanks,
it's
Reggie.
something that, again, like that one-shot deal in the Versus and team-up deal, this is, again, it's something that you can kind of not worry about other things and just read it as its own thing, its own story. And sometimes that's cool. Sometimes it's cool to read something that legitimately has a beginning and an end. It looks like you're having fun with it. You're doing a lot of Gangs of New York stuff. It's gritty. It has all that.
It's
And
a
really
period
gives,
piece.
yeah,
It's, you know what I mean? It's plausible because you have a character with this level of longevity. Sabretooth really fits in with the gangs of Marvel New York.
yeah, yeah.
In this period piece. It's like it's set literally in 1909.
Yep.
Like every info dump page is it's the front page of the Daily Bugle. I
Yep,
love that.
Yeah, yeah. And
so
what I
fun.
also like is a lot of these things you'll have like, oh, we're going to put this character in that. And you're like, that doesn't fit. Like, how does that character work? This fits. And you're not going with there's not a ton of over the top, like wink, wink. Like you said, at the point where Fisk is in that armor, it looks like a steampunk Iron Man armor.
Right. So
you don't have, Howard Stark Sr. You don't have people walking by and going, huh, that looks like I could do something with that. Egads, stuff
There's
like
one
that.
more issue left. They might be
It might.
there be a
I'm
salvage.
telling you, though, you don't end up having like, crazy wackadoo things of like, oh, look at that Easter egg. That's actually Xavier, or that's this, or that's that. It's just telling its story. Yeah, some characters are in it, but they're characters that end up, playing a part and doing pretty good in it. And and the big play of this issue was when you get content, you get killed. And that's the problem. And without a healing factor, he would have been. We did have Fear Monarch in the chat say that you're going to become a pro gamer once you hear you can play as Jeff the Land Shark in Marvel Rivals.
Oh, dude.
Oh, my goodness. You and that
I will
Land
say one
Shark.
thing about, the Squirrel Girl design. I love the design of her outfit. She's got this acorn cap, you know,
Yeah.
the top of an acorn. That's like those are her wrist guards, her arm guards to her
Yeah.
forearm. It's
Yeah.
got the texture of an acorn, and I'm like, that's really fun.
Yeah.
I love her
That's a
design.
Sully thing. Actually, that's the funny thing you say that, and people have listened to some other things that I've done, especially the manga, would be if you didn't listen to it, you'd be shocked at the things that I really do like. And the things that I like in manga are all like the kids in school having their shenanigans and stuff like that. And again, I had problems even still when I am on certain shows, and me and you both do the same thing. We go on different shows. It's who we like, and if people are friendly to us, we're friendly to them. Things like that. May not agree with everything, whatnot, but there's certain places you go, and on YouTube, it is the deal where I suddenly say, like, I like Miss Marvel as a character. I think she's been written poorly for a long, long time. But once you hear, like you just said, Squirrel Girl, some people, this thing goes off in their mind that they just can't deal with it. Like, oh, Squirrel Girl. And yet you're like, yeah. And then you start saying, like, what did you read of Squirrel Girl? What? Nothing. I just think it's, and there are some really neat things. One of the things that gets people so mad, and it happened a lot, is I really like Gabby. I really like Gabby with Laura, the whole X deal, and, you know, Honey Badger / Scout. Like, I like Honey Badger, but the idea is I really like that character. And especially when she would go and when Deadpool was around, her and Deadpool had some really good moments, and I really like it. Again, the character hasn't been written very well in the past bunch of years, but I still like it. And then people just, they hear these certain characters and they want to just lose their minds and think that they can kind of, oh, I'm going to say you're this sort of person just because I like one character that I just end up liking. I like young heroes. I like young heroes a lot because you have that like sense of adventure, and they're learning on the job and things like that I think lead to some pretty cool stories. But in the meantime, a lot of stuff is written so poorly now that I see why some people don't like a Miss Marvel, because she gets forced into things that she shouldn't be in instead of just hanging in New Jersey like nobody, because nobody wants to be in New Jersey. It's a crap hole, is what I'll tell you. Everybody knows that, right?
Futurama.
No, in my mind,
you know what I mean? But it's technically New Jersey, and Fry's like, no way.
Yeah, in my mind, she's heroic just staying in New Jersey. That's a hero's turn to not want to leave. Also, just to throw out, York, PA is a crap hole. You don't want to be there either. And Peter Spider-Man ended up destroying it. The only thing Zeb Wells did right, he destroyed York, PA.
Did they ever resolve that story?
No. He ended up where, remember, everybody was on him. What happened is you ended up having the government go in and survey it and said he actually should be paid. He renovated this town to make it better. And they're like, there's nothing left. They're like, exactly. That town is a shithole. So you end up there. New Jersey, too. I love the idea that you're in Boston, I'm in Philadelphia. The one thing we have in common is we both hate New York. And I don't, but that's the thing, is Boston and Philadelphia, those towns both hate New York so much.
You got the Yankees, got the Rangers.
Yeah.
I don't even hate the Giants. I'm an AFC guy, East, so
really?
I hate the Jets.
Are you a Buffalo Bills fan? Is that what you are?
No.
Oh, yeah, you're a Patriots fan. What am I saying?
When I was a kid, they were the Patsies. We didn't win anything.
Yeah, they did.
Seriously, they were the Patsies once, and we might be again.
Yeah, you keep saying that.
It was
all those
glory
wins.
man.
Don't give me that bull crap. I waited a long, long time for the Eagles to win. I didn't think I was going to say it. But
these summer children, you know what I mean? These
I don't know how I didn't realize you were a Patriots fan. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a glorious time to be a football fan for the past 20 years here.
Yeah,
but that era is over. So
yeah, I think that a lot of your things were a bit inflated back in the day. Hey, Philadelphia, just like, we don't cheat, we just throw batteries at people and snowballs at Santa. We hear that a lot. That nonsense.
I was always sad Eric Lindros didn't work out for you. He wasn't the chosen one.
Yeah, concussion. The guy needs to pick his head up a bit when he's going over the blue line. That's the idea is the problem. Yeah. It's the worst. No, not as bad. Again, this is some weird, crazy sports talk, but nothing's worse than that Paul Correa. When Paul Correa got laid up by Scott Stevens, actually it actually makes me anxious still seeing it, because he's on the ice and suddenly he wakes up and a puff of it fogs up his visor. And he was not breathing before then. Like, he stopped breathing at a point and then suddenly jolts in. Like, I think he was close to dying. And then you had the off the floor and on the board call because he comes back later, which you'd never be allowed to do, and scores a goal, which, again, I thought was one of the biggest, greatest sports memories. You're not allowed to say that anymore because he came back with a concussion. And now it's looked at poorly. I'm like, it was one of the greatest things I ever saw. That guy scored a goal after being almost dead. Ooh-wee, but he can't remember that day. He said he doesn't remember the game at all. It's bad. Yes. And
Nice
Brandon
too.
C. does say that, yes, the Eagles fans, especially Michael Irvin, looked like he was paralyzed at one point and got a standing ovation. I like to say that they were applauding because of all the great catches he had in the past. Not that he was paralyzed, they thought. And then I think some people booed when he got up. It's bad. Philadelphia fans, they're very passionate. They are. But what would you give this issue of Sabertooth?
I would give it a solid 8.
Yeah,
Because, like,
I think I would too.
That's a B. I mean, it's like I said, it does not reinvent the wheel, but it has a reliability. If you like a good story, well told, with great art, and it's set in a really interesting period,
Yeah.
of time, and it's a period piece.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is a lot like Gangs of New York by Scorsese.
Yeah,
It's actually about 50 years after that.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, so it is a different era, generation.
But it still plays out
But
like that.
it still plays
I
out.
thought it was a cool play. I really,
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool. And like I said, I caught up to it, so it did read really good.
I'm
And
glad
if
you
you do,
liked it.
yeah, I'm glad you suggested it to
I'm
me.
glad you thank
And
you for taking my suggestion.
I hope that people, it would be great if people go and get the issues. But if you just wait and want to check out,
Yeah, it's gonna make
and
it a
see.
great trade. It
Yeah,
really is.
and in the app and things like that, it'll work out too, eventually to get people to, check it out and things like that. So I hope that they do. But in the meantime, I did say to you that at one point we would maybe talk a little bit about the other books that came out. Not really a lot. I didn't read everything this week. I usually do. I'm usually on the Hot or Not podcast on Wes's Patreon, but because of the accident I got into, I couldn't do it. Basically because I couldn't talk. I was having some problems.
Yeah.
I think right now is probably the best it's been. I'm not licking the stupid lip of mine and it's split. It's sealing up. But I didn't read everything, but I did end up reading ASM. I didn't like it. I know you told me that you liked it a little better, and the play. My big thing in the review was basically, even in the intro, the recap, it really pointed out that none of this contest was ever explained. It ended up being nothing to get to this end, and I just think it was a placeholder for Joe Kelly to, go and start this new #1. But I'm worried because I'm not real big on a lot of the stuff he's done recently, but I do think that at this point, I think this 8 Deaths of Spider-Man feels like a Nick Lowe story more than anything. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like either Justina Ireland or Joe Kelly even knew what the hell was going on. And it's a shame, but it's kind of the whole thing after Zeb Wells' run. Spider-Man's at a low. Like, it is really primed for something big to happen, right?
It's at a low.
Yeah, it is a low,
It's a real low
LOWE.
point.
Not the cruel to be kind, Nick Lowe. So you end up where all this is going on. I saw him in concert a couple times. You end up where you're primed. This is the idea of, like, suddenly it's the worst to be and to get you to be the shortstop after Jeter. You know what I mean? Or the quarterback after Tom Brady. But when you're there for Wally Pipp, you're just waiting for, oh my God, somebody can come in and kill it. Somebody can come in and just tell a basic, fun story. And boy, you could be looked at. That story will get elevated if you could just do it. Just come and. But I think Nick Lowe gets in the way. I think he just won't get out of the way.
The
So
good
it
thing about
sucks.
ASM 69 is the art, because we got Ed McGuinness and we got Scott Farmer. Is it Scott Farmer? Mike Farmer?
No, but you keep going.
We got an inker. We have a penciler and an
Okay,
inker.
yeah.
So it's got line weight. It's got a nice feel to it. I actually enjoyed that the reveal of the last page. I think it had better pacing, and because this is the point of it. This is the story. It's the penultimate issue. We're wrapping it up. So it had better momentum, and it had, so it was going somewhere.
Yeah.
Unlike probably the previous 6 issues.
It doesn't
Out of this
matter.
12 exactly. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't. I'm telling you, you have a kind soul, Sully.
Thank
You will
you.
try to
Yeah, I'm
find the
rooting for my
positives
friend
of
Peter.
things. And when I read that, I got angry. I got angry. And I was like, I just wasted all my time in the idea that the 8 deaths, because I said at one point, I know the story's not hidden because nobody could tell me the deaths and how many. And then he gives away 4 to die, but then be brought back, all of it. And really, this is when I realized that not many people, while it still sells, not like it should, if it was good. But the idea that nobody cared, that legitimately Spider-Man died in the book this past month, and I didn't see anybody react to that at all. Like, this is Spider-Man dying. No, everybody's just like, whatever. Either they just like, he'll just come back, or what. But it still should have been bigger, the idea of it, and it was a nothing story. But I did end up also reading Hell Hunters. These are things that'll be on with the books that we talked about too. Will be on our regular weekly podcast that is on all the places that play all the great podcasts. But and also I'll have it on YouTube as well. One of the things I like to put up the Marvel one a little earlier, but because of my thing and me and you recording today, it'll go up tonight with the DC one. But in the meantime, I did read Hell Hunters #4, and it's a weird book. I end up where I want to like it more. I like it, but not just enough in my mind. And I thought that, I know it's funny to say, like, oh, I thought there'd be more fun in this World War II deal with these. I don't know that it has to be fun, but I feel like while I'm reading it, it's just not getting to exactly what the itch. It's not scratching the itch that I would need from something when something ridiculous, like Stephanie Phillips' Cap Wolf, I actually had fun with it. I'm like, this is really fun. And this one seems to be kind of meandering a bit at points where I thought maybe you get it a little bit, more I don't know. But what did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. I thought that it's a great balance to our ongoing Ultimates #10 conversation. Because we have no problem with killing Nazis. It's just our problem is with storytelling and with modernity, maybe one-sidedness to the aisle, you know what I mean, kind of stuff that's kind of obvious. We were just talking about Fing Fang Foom and about baking in the message. You know what I mean? Something like it's we got 2 really good Nick Fury World War II books just this week. I really enjoyed that, especially being, as I said, a big Bronze Age World War II reader.
Yeah, you're a big guy like that. Yeah,
the DC comics and the Marvel comics. I was really into that.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say, the thing about that big Ultimates fight, it became a big thing on Wes's channel especially, but the idea where I read the issue and my big thing right away was, every time, I'm telling you, Cap, I said it in a little video that I made, if Cap got a time machine and went back to prehistoric times, there would be Nazi dinosaurs. That's all the writers do. It's like Cap's there. So I made a joke at one point that what happens with Black Cat a lot is you can make her do anything if you tell her it's a caper. If you say, oh, I need you to do this caper. Oh, what is it? Oh, you have to stealthily go to Walmart and buy me bread. She's like, I'm in. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, you just have to frame it in a way. And with Cap, I swear to God, he might be like, I'm not really involved. Oh, I heard that these guys, he's there. Like, and it seems like such a basic thing to do. So when you have a new universe, even though it is, bits and pieces, but it is that play of a what if. I mean, and especially when you're doing stuff with Cap, it is the what if that you play in alt history. Like the idea, one of the, 2 of the biggest things of alt history are if the Nazis won, and also if the South won the Civil War. Those are huge. But you can't just go and say, that means that everybody's Nazis down the line, and
the Ottomans won the Crimean War.
And there's interesting things, and there's interesting things to go with that. And I think that what you get, Dennis Campy's just so surface level of things that's what annoys me. The whole idea of people fighting, and just as an aside, when you review books, and I already said, I like Gabby, I like Miss Marvel, and I get tagged as this or that or whatever. No, I just like the characters. If I review an issue and I like it or not like it, it's only going to be because of the comic. It's not going to be because of me saying, I now like this. And you get that all the time. If you don't like a Pride issue, you get tagged. No, I didn't like it because it wasn't very good. The writing was bad. The art wasn't. And if you end up not liking this Ultimate, suddenly you're a Nazi? I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I
Or
didn't
you
know that
don't like
comics
killing
had the power to
Nazis? You
do
don't
that.
like punching Nazis?
I'm like,
Oh,
yeah.
you must like them. You must
Yeah.
love them. You
And
must be want to go to
again,
bed with them.
my big
Like,
point
are you
was you didn't
kidding
really
me?
explore anything and just had basic bitch storytelling, and then I got called a Nazi. I'd like, really?
Oh,
Like,
geez.
again, if I knew that that's the power of comics, I might not read them. All of a sudden, I'm turning into things that I'm not. I don't get it. It was
And see,
weird.
Health Hunters #4 is made for a general audience.
Yeah.
Fin Fan
Yeah.
Foom versus Nick
It's a
Fury
comic.
is made for a general
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah.
Ultimates #10 is made for a very vocal minority of imaginary readers who don't buy the
I
comics.
just think that Dennis Kemp, like, as he's, getting high as hell, he's like, oh
Woohoo.
man, and what he's doing, and I tried to even talk to people about this, is he's playing the game as well. I mean, he might be a smart guy. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
love his writing. And I'd rather read comic book politics than something that looks like it's straight out of, ripped from the headlines in an editorial type deal. That's what I like. But
Right.
the idea where he kind of knows if I put Cap fighting Nazis, there's going to be people are going to be like, yeah, that's awesome. And if
not
somebody
just
says it's
Nazis,
not
but
good, you're going to,
North
Punisher.
American neo-Nazis
Yeah, and all
in
this
our,
stuff. And
in our here and now.
but that doesn't make the issue good. So if you end up not
Yeah.
liking it, there's other. Now, if you say, I don't like it because of this, that, and you have these weird explanations and whatnot, then maybe you have some problems. But I didn't like it because I thought the pacing of the series is bad. I thought that Cap, when can he show up and fight anything but Nazis? It always has to be said. It kind of gets on my nerves. Again, this is a world building, they say. But I said, the idea that one guy said, but it's great world building. I said, really? The world building is having people with Punisher and Red Skull tattoos on them. That's it. That was the world building. I want more than that, but I'm kind of done with those books. The Ultimate books, I'll still read. Ultimate Spider-Man. I read Ultimate X-Men that you don't like. Here's the thing.
The most typical superhero tale out of all of
Well,
them.
that's the thing too. If you do want to have a Black Panther book that's just a general I just wanted something different. I guess I don't know. I don't know. I stopped reading it. I've had some problems. I ended up because when I started reading Marvel, it was Ta-Nehisi Coates it was the start of his run, which was just a slog. Then you get others, John Ridley, Eve Ewing, like none of them were good.
Yeah.
It just kept
The
going.
Eve
So
Ewing
this
one,
is
I
the
was
better
kind of
one.
mediocre on.
Yeah, because you're sus. You're like
Well, I
Gabe.
know.
Gabe, who
Aw.
doesn't like G.I. Joe at all. He's crazy. He is insane.
Got to get his head checked.
Yeah, he does. But in the meantime, that's kind of the books that we talked about. But we'll get out of here. I don't want to keep you too long. We ended up
that's cool.
talking a lot,
Well,
but
just to let you know that this week I bought the Uncanny X-Men 133 facsimile because it's one of the best standalone Wolverine books out there. It's going to look great on my spinner rack. And you got great John Byrne art inked by Terry Austin. This is some good stuff.
Yeah.
I also picked up Flash Gordon #7. We have an art change when Will Conrad's not on it. We got Tom Derenick. And it's actually pretty good. And
Is it?
Trial by combat stuff. Jeremy Adams just nails.
Yeah, I like
simple.
Everybody likes
storytelling.
Jeremy Adams, right?
I mean, Green Lantern Corps #2 was decent. Aquaman #3 was pretty good. And
Brandon said in the comments, quick though, he says that Cap hates Germans so much he didn't even eat that German food. It's true.
Man,
it's true. At one point, I remember in the recent run, he was like in the park, and they were like hot dogs. He's like, I normally eat hot dogs, but I'm gonna consider them brats because I don't like them Germans. Yeah, it's like you can't escape that. Again, it's a big thing, but we all know it. But you keep going. What else did you get?
But my big pick of the week is Transformers 18.
Okay,
it's got the Jorge Corona art in this is just amazing, and it's so in lockstep with what Daniel Warren Johnson was putting out in the first 6 issues. We got 2 really delicious splash pages. We got Bruticus and Devastator fighting in downtown Seattle, and it's great. And then there's a reveal. I don't want to spoil it because it's that good.
Really?
And yeah, I really enjoy the hell out of this book. It's for me, this is the proof of the pudding on being on the plate of the serialized format being successful. I mean, I come back every month and I'm satisfied with this. G.I. Joe Energon, with G.I. Joe Real American Hero, with Incredible Hulk by Philip Kennedy Johnson, usually Nick Klein. These books keep me coming back week after week and spending money at my local comic book shop.
Yeah,
That's the only way we're going to save comics. We got to
true.
show up and spend our money in these mom and pop brick and mortar shops.
And again,
you know what I mean?
You say that. Nobody's telling anybody to buy stuff that isn't good, though. You know, some of the stuff ends up. So if you do, but if you support the stuff that's good, then, you know, higher ups eventually realize that.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
it happened with Jeremy Adams. You mentioned
I wish
him
there was a
earlier.
better returnability for these for the local comic book shops. You know what I mean? Because I mean, what's wrong with returning this like unsellable stack of comics to be put to pulp and to be reborn as fresh funnies?
Yeah. And so
I
was, while you're saying that, I was looking next week. It's a weird week from Marvel. I don't even know what we're going to be talking about. I'm looking at some stuff. We have One World Under Doom. Number 2 is a big one. But then there's, you know, some side things. Sam Wilson Cap. You got the TVA book. Miles Morales Magic. There's some other kind of side things and not really any number 1s, which I always look forward to. Cable Love and Chrome number 3 comes out. A bunch of things come out, and that Deadpool Wolverine number 3 as well. So whichever one that is, because there's like 80 different tie-ins, super
no shit,
crazy. But with all that, there's a bunch. There's DC has a ton of books next week, so there is.
And we get Sacrificers.
Yeah, there's a lot of Sacrificers. There's a lot of stuff, just in general coming out. And Bug Wars number 2, I really like that first one, so that's kind of cool. G.I. Joe, I just saw 5. The Rockefellers. There's a lot of stuff coming out.
Yeah.
So it'll be a big deal, and maybe we'll expand if you'll join me, and maybe we'll make this, you know, not always a regular thing, but maybe somewhat or whatever. If you want to join me, maybe we'll even get Gray, even though at this point he's probably like heading to bed. He's in Japan, so it's pretty late for him. But yeah, maybe we'll just get a bunch of things and just discuss some side things. I like to end up, you know, focusing on things that I wasn't even that aware were that good. So we did have some people in the comments. You can always
down me up and say, "Hey, Sully, cheer me up."
Yeah, like, hey, you cheer me up a lot when you send me like, "Hey, this Jeff the Landshark book's the greatest thing I ever read." I laugh. I mean, like, you're really cheering me up a lot then. But we will do this, and if you can't join me, maybe we'll just have, you know, a bunch of people. We'll see how it goes. I just thought this would be cool to do an impromptu thing and kind of get, this is almost the line that I said that I wanted to do something with you and Gray and a bunch of other people where it was more positive. It was more positive, and
we'll get there. I think we're on the right path, man.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. And Kalichi Oki just joined in as we're leaving. So yeah, so it's cool to do live too. I want to do more live stuff. I'm not great with it. Obviously, I still have basic stuff to set up and things like that. But we'll do that.
Remember, you can always be part of this ongoing comic book shop style conversations in the comments section. So you know what? Smash that like button. You know, hit subscribe and hit that share button, because every single one of those things and leaving comments helps suggest to the algorithm to push the show to people that want to hear some good stuff. Yeah, and maybe even spend their money at the local comic book shop.
Oh my, that would be good. That would change some things for the better. It would.
You need bags, you need boards, you need boxes, don't you? Don't you? Don't get them off of
you
your
say
online
that to
supply
me.
chain.
I'm such a full out digital, and always have been, just because of when I started doing it, and I got yelled at because I collected books at one point. My freaking, they ended up where my wife was going to kill me, but. In the meantime, again, tell people where they can find you, because you have a live stream coming up later. You'll mention it in the comments.
3 p.m.
Yep.
3 p.m. U.S. Eastern today. Join us. We'll be going over my many purchases from the local comic book shop and whatever I've read this week too. We'll also talk a bit about the Tom Brevoort brouhaha.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds like he's really out of touch, as the kids like to say.
Look at those hats the guy wears. I mean, seriously.
Oh, man. But,
he's out of touch, all right, to the fashion police. That's what ends up happening. But yeah, you sent me a link to the deal, and I haven't even seen what it is, so I'll watch and see what is going on. I'll have your deal going on.
I do a gratitude list show, and I'm also, so you can tune in Monday morning. I mean, it's usually weekday mornings, and it's called Live and Learn, Making America Grateful Again. You know, and I took the trope and I twisted it. I subverted it. I made a hat.
Yeah, you made a hat. And it's like green is what they have.
Yeah, Making America Grateful Again.
So with that, I'll put Sully's link in the show notes of this. And again, this will also be part of our Marvel podcast that we have each and every week. And I'm going to start doing more things like this, get things going. And I did end up catching you and Gray on Gray's show last night. That's what
That was
did
fun.
get me inspired to kind of do this. I just out of the blue said, yes, Sully, me and you are going live. And then
That's
ended
cool.
up not even, I don't even think that I ended up really, I was going to tweet it out, but by the time I got done reading or whatever, we had like 3 minutes to go. So I had to set up things. But while I was watching you and Gray, I did mention that I was coming up with a theme song for Sus Gabe, and so we'll go out with that. It is a little wacky. It is a idea of a almost like a spy movie theme by Eartha Kitt is what I was trying to go for, just making fun of Sully. So we'll go out with that. But thanks everybody, especially Mark Jager and Matt Fisher for the super chats, which is awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll be back maybe next week. I don't know. People seem to like it. Somebody just said we're a good combo.
Oh,
that's what they said. Like
old school radio people.
We combo
Seriously.
the hunger away. That's the thing too, is when you say that, I only have these sound bites and things like that because I always wanted to run a morning zoo. That's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be
Sully
a morning
and the
zoo
Madman
guy.
talking comic
I'm
books
telling you,
here
that's
at
what
Weird
I wanted.
Science.
I wanted, and I actually, at the points, I didn't even want to be the one talking. I just want to do the sound effects and just go
Run
to
the
town
board
with
like-
them. Yeah, I want to run
like
the
Fred
board. I want to
Norris.
be Fred. Fred was my hero. I'm telling you. I'm not even joking. He's my
I like
hero.
Jackie
the
Joker
deal.
and Martling, man.
I do
I'm
too.
old school Stern.
I love both of them. So yeah, so
Oh,
we'll
man.
end up with that. But we will do this. But again, I hope that you'll join me.
We
know, the times, and we'll keep doing this, and people seem to enjoy it. So thanks everybody for
cool.
showing up.
Thank you,
and
everyone out there.
we can all
And
make
thank
fun
you,
of
Jim.
Gabe. Yeah, thank you, Sully, for joining me. I do like the positive spin. You get me all excited. I mean, people even said too, just as my last statement, which this is what happens anytime I record like this, is I'll have 5 million last statements. Be like, and this is, but people even said it's nice to hear Jim actually enjoy things.
Be happy. It is good to hear the smile on your voice. It is.
So there you go. But thanks everybody. We'll listen to Gabe, make fun of him if he's around, point at him and laugh at him, and he'll love that. But here we go. Thanks everybody. Talk to you later.
Bye.
There's a man who has plenty of steaks. It's amazing all the enemies that he makes. He says he's honest, so I guess it's fine, except when he gave that predator one a 9. He says that he's not funny, and it's true. He reads all the shitty books for me and you. He's Sus Gabe, and here he comes, making sexy jokes is something that he shuns. He's Sus Gabe. He draws a line, except when he gave Predator one a 9.
All right. We just end then and then.
All right, we are clear.